Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So I finally got my rogue to be a good enough DPS level that I can go and farm out the Vault of Stars on the live server with my friends and actually do competitive DPS. So I've done many runs now, and I'd like to go over a few tips and tricks of what I believe should be known at least for any DPS that want to be jumping into this dungeon and at least being able to successfully do maximum damage along with surviving. Now, a few days after I make this video, I'm most likely going to come out with a build, the build that I'm using for my rogue, so keep an eye out on that if you are interested. So initially with the dungeon, you're just going to have, as you may have seen before already in my previous guides, just a bunch of mobs. Just make sure the tank goes first, or if you know you're capable enough, like on a rogue, I have my smoke bomb, which is a daze, which will basically prevent the mobs from attacking me. So if I manage to put this smoke bomb down, I know I really won't take much damage. So I am a little foolhardy sometimes, and I guess damage greedy, so I rush in a lot of the times to take the initial damage. I don't recommend it, especially if you're newer to the dungeon and you don't know what to expect. So just do the courtesy and let the tank go first. And really there's nothing much to it with all these mobs. Just when you go past the phase where you get through the barrier, you will encounter these areas, and initially you'll only have one corpse flower. Make sure you kill this as quickly as possible, and by going through the corpse flower, and if you're there first, you will aggro the mobs around you, and it'll just, people with AoE powers will be able to kill it nice and quicker. In the second area, you have 2 corpse flowers. In the third area, you have 3 corpse flowers, and once all the mobs are dead, you have the shambling mound. Just be aware of the poison that the corpse flowers put on the ground, along with the shambling mound. Now, that's pretty much it, and you're on to the first boss. Now, here it can be quite complicated as to know what's going on and where you should be positioning yourselves, etc. Now, initially you want to set yourselves up so that one DPS goes single target and basically has himself glued to the boss and does all that single target damage. And the rest of the 2 DPS would go then AoE, and you'd kill off those mobs which will be spawning around the corpse flowers in the center of the arena every now and again. Now, there might be different group compositions, but at least one DPS will go like full AoE. So what you want to initially do when you jump into this boss fight is make sure to move those red areas that spawn on you to the outside. This is very crucial to give yourself enough combat room without being able to take that damage over time by standing within those glowing mushrooms. Now, I do recommend reducing your settings if you're finding it hard to see things in this boss fight. Your screen might be really dark and the contrast might be really high. So be sure to just lower the graphics settings, make sure that post-processing is off, I believe that's what it's called, and you'll be able to see a lot more easier. Now, this boss fight is relatively straightforward. You have first a phase where he will teleport to the edge and he'll do either a red line or a green line. The red line is wide. Make sure you intercept it with either a corpse flower, or if it's on you, you can either just dodge away and move it to the outside. But you need to get that timing right. Best is to just make sure a corpse flower is between you and the boss. With the green line, you can successfully intercept it. You'll take a little bit of damage, but you'll also get a damage buff. So it's one you do want to be taking. And during the line phase, that's when a lot of mobs will spawn in the middle. That's when you want to have those smoke bomb down, at least on a rogue, with your Path of Blades, and be dealing all that juicy damage. And then it's just single target again. As soon as the boss is to 50%, you get the Panther. Not much you can do here, just be aware of that line which the tank has to take. If he's a new tank and he doesn't intercept this line very well, or he's still learning, just move away from the boss when he does his pounce. If you're the victim of the pounce, you really can't do much other than pray your healer will heal you through it. Now, other than that, you beat up the Panther and you're back to the boss again. One thing you do want to look out for is if you get a red line connecting you to a mob. Your allies need to kill that mob ASAP, and it's the same with other people. If you see a red line on them to a mob, kill the mob before it gets to that ally. Otherwise, if the mob gets to the ally, they explode and you get another soil stack. This is what the main thing is about this boss. If you fail a mechanic, they gain a soil stack, the mobs and the boss, and they obtain more control resistance and they deal more damage, meaning your stuns etc. will be much less effective. Now, towards the end of this fight, you will get these mounds which will spawn on the outside connected to one of the corpse flowers. Be sure to kill those mounds ASAP. If they get to the corpse flower, they will come alive and start hitting everything. They have a ton of HP, so make sure to kill them before they become alive and start hurting everybody. So that's pretty much it for this boss fight. You kill mobs, intercept lines, make sure they're going to the correct coordinates. If I didn't really explain this that well in this video, you might want to look at my other videos that I've made, either my overall guide or my guide to the tanking or healing. You might get some other tips from there as well. And that's it for this boss, and we move on. Now you have this forest area where you need to follow this light. You follow the light to make sure you're within the designated light zone. Follow it along. Now every now and again it will turn purple, the light will, and these mobs will spawn. That is when you want to be dealing maximum damage. So you just continue through it, killing all the mobs. When you get near the end, these two shambling mounds will spawn before the boss. Now beware of these shambling mounds, as they can initially deal a hefty amount of damage. If you have the aggro on them, you're probably going to die. So be sure to let the tank take it first, so just stay back away from them. I have foolishly died many times to them. Anyway, we're on to the second boss. Now here there's really nothing special you have to do. You might want to be coordinating with your tank at which direction you want to be rotating with the ice or the icy terrain. The initial mechanic you will see will be the hypo, where there's a big red area and you just want to stack up close. If you're caught in the red, you will be placed in an ice and everybody around you will also. So you can basically bust up the whole party if you're incorrectly in the red. Then we have the mechanic where somebody will obtain a red AoE with a double arrow down. This you need to move away from the party, as it will have the same mechanic where anybody caught in the red area around you will also be turned to ice along with yourself. So you can screw up again everybody with that. So be sure to move it towards the middle. This is generally what we do. We tank the boss on the outside and rotate either clockwise or anti-clockwise, depending which way the tank wants to go. And thus the ice all goes into the middle. The ice procs on you, turning you into an icicle, and people then need to break you out. You might get a cone attack from the boss at the same time. Now these cone attacks can be very sporadic in which direction they're placed. Just be sure you either move in between or move to the safe area behind the boss. Sometimes, very annoyingly, this area can shift and end up shooting off in the direction which it initially didn't show. This is a bug and only happens every now and again. It's just something to keep aware of, and ideally you just move behind the boss, as you're less likely, if it does move, to be hit. And then with the ice, if you get it with the cone, be sure to let the ice blast with the cone to go off first and break the ice afterwards. Otherwise, you'll end up just killing yourselves if you're not fast enough. If you do get the red AoEs without the arrows, everybody will have the red AoEs. You just want to stand still until you see, if you have a bark shield, you take a damage hit. The bark shield will initially block it, and then you dodge out of there. I like to dodge. You can just walk. If you have decent healer, they'll heal you through it, but don't just go standing in the ice unnecessarily. But don't be a headless chicken, like I have myself been many times, and move too early. Otherwise, you're just creating a bigger area of icy terrain for people having to walk through. So, with that being said, that's pretty much it for the boss. The mechanics on the boss will speed up. He'll obtain more of those cones on each of his cone attacks, the lower amount of hit points he has. So, just be aware, stay out of the red, and kill the boss. So, finally we move to the maze before the third boss. Now, this maze, again, is AoE. Make sure you're all spec'd out for that. Can deal maximum AoE damage. The maze is like a time check, right? You need to get through 3 arenas before the bar of the encroaching darkness drains away. Once it's drained away, you're all dead. With the increase to the timer, you should be perfectly fine. So the initial arena, you just beat up mobs until you get the corpse flowers that will spawn on the outsides. Be sure to kill the corpse flowers as quickly as possible, or they'll just keep spawning mobs and you'll end up wasting your time. Once all the mobs are killed within the first arena, you need to go and exit the arena through the hedge. You go through the hedge and you might get split up in 2 different groups. And you want to turn right from the direction at which you went through the hedge. So you turn right and you go and you kill the mobs, and then you go through the doorway. You get through the doorway and you're in a area here, which is where you should both group up after you've both gone through your first door after your first area. I hope you get what I mean. But you should group up here, and here is where you should find one of the doors will lead you into the next arena. And in the next arena, it's the same as before. Kill mobs, kill the corpse flowers, and move on. Again, you'll be split up. Well, sometimes you'll get lucky and you won't be split up. If you are split so that there's like 1 healer or 1 DPS on one side and the 4 of you on the other, you might want to wait. If you're the singular guy, wait for your party to come and rescue you and then go to the arena. And that's really it. That third arena, you'll have more mobs, more corpse flowers. You just kill them all. You'll even have a corpse flower in the center. At some point, people will start spotting these void areas on the ground. Make sure to not stand in them. You'll just take damage over time. And that's it really. You kill all the mobs, then you exit through the barrier, and then you'll come to the steps, and these 3 shambling mounds will spawn. Be sure to let the tank go first to take the initial hit, and be sure to avoid the poison that they spawn on the ground. And then you're up the steps and you need to go and activate the light which follows you, and you can then go before the final boss. Now the final boss can be pretty challenging in terms of DPS. You need to make sure you're dealing damage at the right time and not at the wrong time, and it's fairly simple. If you see your attacks on the boss are proccing up shield markers, that's when you need to stop DPS, and you wait until the tank moves the golem to the right area. Initially, he's going to have to move the golem to the light area. Once the golem's in the light area, you can damage him. This is when we usually like to call artifacts, and then we all do a crazy burst damage. And at this point, when your boss reaches about 50%, he will phase, and you'll basically have to lead him into the dark area. So be sure to stop DPS if he's not within a dark area at that point. You kill the golem. There's nothing special here other than the hypo, which you need to group up for. And then you have the second golem. Now the second golem will have a large area attack where you'll see the red on the ground. Just move out of it, and you'll have the hypo at the same time, so you need to be grouped up. Same mechanics as before, only damage him when he's in the right area. Otherwise you'll take damage from damage reflecting back on you and you'll just kill yourself. Now when you get to the third golem, this is when things get tricky and when most groups start dying a lot. You get these black holes along with the hypo. Now when you get these black holes, you then will get sucked towards them and you may get a hypo on top of it. So it's a lot of heavy damage that the healer needs to heal you through. Now ideally what you would do is you would all move away from the black hole. It's fairly easy, but the problem is these black holes tend to spawn next to the boss, and if you're melee DPS, you need to stay next to the boss to actually do damage. So all things considered, it's the worst part of this entire dungeon for a melee DPS, because yeah, you're kind of incentivized to be a ranged DPS and be able to stand far away and be able to hit the boss, avoiding those black holes and not having to situate yourself in, let's say, the black hole just to be able to deal damage. But if you have a good enough healer, it really doesn't matter. And that's pretty much it for the dungeon. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And with that said, hopefully I presented this well. If you'd like to consider leaving the video a like, and if you're new around here, consider subscribing. And we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.